Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to start looking at specific attacks. But first, I'll show you some overview of the classification. Here we have 7 different categories: social engineering, cracking, malware, network layer attacks, web-based attacks, denial of service, and zero-day. So what we'll do is, in this week's video series, we'll cover all the items in the blue. We'll look at the network layer attacks and denial of service attacks next week's series of videos, and we'll look at the web-based attacks the week after. But of course, you can use other classifications, but in this unit we'll use these classifications. Okay, and in this particular video, we'll be looking at social engineering. Okay. So social engineering is basically a persuasion type of an attack to disclose sensitive information. So this includes phishing attack. You probably receive a lot of spam emails or junk emails, possibly telling you, hey, you won a lotto, please contact me or click this link to get this, or some emails regarding your PayPal account has been suspended, please click this link to recover it, or your Netflix subscription, there's an issue on payments, please click this to fix it, things like that, right? All of those are trying to get you to do something that you are not meant to be doing, right? So basically they're trying to persuade you to install or execute some malicious software or script, or links to bogus websites, things like spoofed bank websites, and they'll try to impersonate legitimate user to retrieve your credentials, as well as technical support, as well as impersonating technical support members, claiming that they're here to help you. All right. Well, is it effective? Ever think? Okay. So let's give you a closure of its effectiveness. Okay. So given 0.1% success rate, that's maybe still quite high, right? But nevertheless, if you send these emails to, say, 1 million users, with that success rate, you can still compromise 1,000 users, right? So even if you reduce these percentages, the amount of spam mail you send really dictates how successful it can be, okay? And 91% of cyber attacks do start with some sort of phishing email. Okay, as a good example, Stuxnet and RSA breach all started with a phishing email. So if you are not sure about what Stuxnet is, you should definitely look that up. That's a very fascinating one. RSA, that is the RSA that we covered a few videos back about the cryptography system. So you might have looked it up, but they have their own company, which is a cybersecurity company, and they had a breach as well. So let's have a look at a few different types, starting with phishing. Phishing attack is a mass distribution of spoofed emails. Basically, they're trying to send you a bunch of things like the examples that I described you before, and trying to, get you to click a link or download some files that is going to run some malicious scripts and whatnot. Okay. So what they'll try to hide it is trying to come from what it seems to be a well-known organizations, okay, banks, insurance, retailers, credit cards, and so forth. And nowadays, it's even more difficult to tell whether it's a true or not, right? Because they look quite legitimate, but ultimately they will lead to fake or bogus sites, okay? And one way or the other, they will be asking for some personal credentials. And this doesn't necessarily be a straight away asking, please enter your details, but they might take you a few steps around, which may make you think that it's a legitimate process to do so. For example, you can think about how a lot of places validate your ID. Basically, all you have to say is, read out your full name, date of birth, and address. Is it really safe? Well, you can probably find those informations online, or even just scruffing through like a bins of your thrown out letters, and people do find this information quite easily. So is it a good way to validate IDs nowadays? Probably not, and I really cringe at those organizations still doing that. They need to do something better. Like, you know, we at university, we now have a two-factor authentication. We have the authenticator app generating a new code every minute. Okay, they can implement this quite easily, but I don't know why they don't. Anyway, I'm getting drifted. And they're also evolving those phishing spam emails, right? They have less mistakes nowadays. It was much easier to detect them a long time ago. Still a lot of them true, but highly sophisticated attacks, crafted ones, they are much easier, much harder to detect. For example, natural language processing has been advanced so much. You should look it up, things like GPT-3 or BERT language sentence generators, and many times they read really well, although they are machine generated, and the meanings can be garbage, but it actually reads well. Okay, those phishing emails will be more in context, more relevant to you. So what they do is there's like a different stages of attacks, and if it's just a basic attack, you might just get a basic information. But if those people are targeting you specifically, they will collect information about you through your social medias and whatnot, and then craft something that's more relevant. For example, whenever things like the lockdown happens, or when some event happens, like there was a elderly couple who got contacted by messages by their children asking for some emergency money because they in a situation they need some money to get out, and you know, those people sent money, but it just happened to be that the children just weren't in the range of communications, and that can happen within a day, right? Also, those specific targeted attacks, so those specific targeted attacks will be labeled as spear phishing. So it's more targeted to the particular user. Okay, so you've probably seen messages like this. Here's an order. Thank you for your order. Your invoice is attached. Please open it. Blah blah blah. But I never ordered anything, so those probably easy to pick it up. You know. So also another like this, some person wanting to do some business, wanting to transfer money to you. Awesome. But yeah, probably quite easy to figure it out. And also, you've probably been contacted by the Prince of Nigeria at some stage. I know I have. So maybe you also. But yeah, maybe it's an actual person. Yeah, who knows? That's up to you to decide. Here's another one that came. This one actually came to me. This is one of my spam email that I received back in 2018. Dear user, please blah 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 and blah 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 blah. Okay, so how do I find out whether this is actually a phishing email or not? Because we have some indications that it may be true or maybe false, right? Well, some of the things that pops out is that it's coming from some college that I'm not really associated with, and also it says dear user, doesn't know my name, so probably a generic template, and this link looks very suspicious, right? So it's probably not a good one. However, I did look that person up, and it's an actual person that I found. So that was interesting, but I never dealt anything with that person. So here's another example. Is this real or fake? I will let you decide by pausing this video for a bit. Okay, so you probably picked up some items here and there. So let me go over it. This one, dear citizen, okay, probably not a good thing because normally they will address your name, at least. And also they're telling you to do something, right? Open something. And normally ATO, which office is this? Yeah, ATO. ATO won't let you do that. They will just ask you to log in from their own web page. Okay, so never ever click anything or open anything from ATO emails. Okay, here's another one. A new message from our VC saying this. Have a think whether this is real or fake. You can pause the video. Okay, so probably by reading this, probably think it's a legitimate one, and that's a very good guess, right? Absolutely. But you should always check every single link that are provided, because this one I have recrafted so that those links will take you to somewhere bogus. Okay, and no, actually I will discuss things that we found in labs rather than on this lecture video. Okay, so that's the phishing aspect, and phishing can be quite effective. But another one is farming. What farming does is that it's a redirection attack, which take you to connect to somewhere else, which connect you to somewhere else that you're not supposed to connect to. Okay, so the browser may still display the web address you wanted. So from what you see, it's true, but technically, what you see is not what you see. Does that make sense? Anyway, I have an example after, so this should make sense more clear. So a good example is the DNS tampering, which redirects the traffic to the different website without the users knowing. Okay, so what you are viewing is fake, even though it looks real. Okay, so let's have a look. So here is our 5 entities required for this farming attack. We have the attacker at the top and the fake site that the attacker created. And at the bottom, we have the 3 legitimate entities, the DNS server, you, and the legitimate site. Okay, so what happens is the attacker will poison the DNS server. Okay, so it's going to wipe out the entry of redirection, because what DNS do is you provide a name and then it translates to the address. So it can be IPv4, IPv6, and then it does its magic and routes you to that server. Okay, and normally the name will be linked to correct address of where the legitimate site is. Okay, and what the attacker is doing is poisoning that. So it edited it. Okay, so user wants to go to legitimate site. Okay, so type in its name, and for it to be able to route there, it needs to go through the DNS. And what DNS returns you is the address. Okay, so from your device, if it's first time visiting this legitimate site, you won't have any cache or cookies associated with that. So you need to go through the DNS first. Okay, so you gets the address. However, the attacker has already poisoned the DNS server. Therefore, you're actually redirected to the fake site. Okay. So that's how this type of farming works. Okay. So the DNS server can be manipulated by itself, but typically that's a little bit difficult. Or DNS lookup table on the user's computer can be manipulated. So either the server can be manipulated, or your own computer's lookup table can be manipulated. Okay. So either way, so the attack can be launched on either the DNS or user yourself. So farming concept is quite straightforward. Here's another social engineering that involves physical domain. Okay, so this is an offensive USB. You can actually buy this. I'm not going to tell you where. You look it up. There are microchips that can be embedded on USB lines, as shown here. So basically, when they're plugged in, they're detected by the US as the human. US? No, OS as a human interface device. And for example, other ones are like the mouse, keyboard, and typically it's because you plugged it in. OS tends to have trust with it. There are additional layers you can add, but without anything by default, it will be just inserted and running its process. And basically, you can control those malicious USB lines via Wi-Fi. So what attacker can do is, if you plug that in, they can connect to your device via Wi-Fi. So that's a communication module inside the USB, and they can start to navigate and do whatever those human interface devices can do, right? Because it's treated as mouse and keyboard, which allows them to also provide inputs. Okay, so that's quite daunting to see. Okay, so how do you go about mitigating social engineering? Well, there's many ways to do this, but ideally you follow all of them. So establishing frameworks, that means you have some procedures that you follow to ensure that you don't fall into traps of social engineering attacks. You also have asset management. Make sure that you have backups, you have authentication, you have trust, you have privacy, all those layers implemented to protect your asset. Security protocol implementation and evaluation, very important. You need to evaluate whether your security protocols are implemented correctly. Security education, whenever you join a new company, they will run you through the security protocols, how to behave. Even at our university, we have this. So if you haven't done so, please read it through. Security review and trust establishments. Okay, so there's a lot of things we could do, but often we kind of skip through because we think it's not important. We probably don't fall through. Unfortunately, it still happens all around us, and therefore it is very important that we follow these. Otherwise, we will move on to the next video, next topic. See you.